Reality is fragile. Layers of code, history and perception stitched together. But what happens when the seams split? When forgotten signals resurface and become something else entirely? Welcome to Glitch Reality. And now the glitch spreads beyond audio. Glitch Reality is now a comic series. Read each nightmare panel by panel on Webtoons or Global Comics. Every story will be adapted. From Season 2, they'll be dropping as the episodes drop, but for now, just bear with me as I am adapting the current stories. And if you feel like you can support me, please do. There'll be a link in my description for my Ko-fi if you feel like you can support the glitch. Now back to the Glitch Reality. Art has always been a way to leave a mark on the world, but what if the mark didn't just stay on the skin? What if it crawled, whispered and hungered, turned the canvas into something alive and deadly? Tonight on Glitch Reality, we dive into the twisted world of Alistair Kane, a struggling tattoo artist who finds a mysterious ink that brings art to life. At first, it's his ticket to fame and fortune, but soon, the lines between art and flesh begin to blur, and Alistair becomes its own masterpiece of horror. This is episode 11. This is Blood Ink. The tattoo shop is quiet. Too quiet. Dust motes float in the shadows of dim, flickering light from a neon open sign that buzzes with a half-hearted glow. Alistair Kane sits behind the counter, head hunched over in a sketchbook, pencil tapping rhythmically against the page. He's been staring at the same half-finished design now for hours. His mind blank, his creativity drained. A stack of unpaid bills loom on the counter's edge, threatening to spill on the floor. The place smells faintly of antiseptic and old leather, mingling with the stale scent of abandonment. Another day without a client, might as well close up for good, Alistair says. He flips the page, trying to force out a new idea. A sleeve design, something bold, something eye-catching, but his hands hesitate. They refuse to move. He glances up at the wall, where his old designs now hang, now faded and neglected, back when his art was vibrant, unique, almost alive. But now it all just feels like lifeless scribbles. Out of frustration, he slams his sketchbook shut and heads back to the back room. Cluttered full of boxes and out-of-date supplies, faded stencil sketches and broken equipment. He never used to bother throwing it away. He digs through a pile of old inks and a half-used bottle, curses beneath his breath. As he pushes a box aside, something catches his eye. A small, ornate wooden box wedged between stacks of dusty folders. Intrigued, he pulls it free and wipes the grime from the surface, revealing the intricate carvings of swirling patterns and serpentine shapes. The box is surprisingly heavy for its size. "What the hell?" states Alistair. He pries it open with a small knife, and inside lies a single bottle of ink, black as night and glimmering faintly, like it's almost pulsating. The glass is smooth, etched with faint symbols he can't even decipher. There's no label, there's no brand, there's nothing to indicate where it came from, and a shiver runs through him as he holds up to a light. For a moment, but just a blink, he could swear the liquid inside moved, like thick, oily water shifting on its own. His curiosity now piqued, Alistair grabs a sheet of paper and dips a fine-tipped pen into the ink. The tip glides effortlessly across as he sketches a small, coiled serpent. The lines near come out impossibly smooth, deep and rich, black that almost seems to shimmer. He leans closer, mesmerized now. For a second, the drawing seemed to shift. The serpent seemed to almost be flexing its scales, rippling. But when he blinks, it's just a drawing again. He just brushes it off as tired eyes as he sets the paper aside. Then, for the first time in ages. The bell above the door rings, snapping him out of his trance. The young woman steps in, a regular client named Riley. She looks hesitant, but Alistair passes on a welcoming smile. "Hey Al, got time for that touch-up?" "Yes, of course, come in. Got something new I've been meaning to try." As he sets up, his gaze drifts towards the serpent sketch. The ink looks wetter than before, as if it hadn't dried yet. Pushing down the uneasy feeling, he loads the new ink into his machine and gets to work on Riley's arm. The needle hums and the ink flows effortlessly. The colours seem deeper, richer, almost alive on her skin. Riley doesn't notice her shaking hands or the way his breath quickens. As he wipes away the excess, he can't help but to admire the way the lines almost seem to move when the light hits them just right. Riley now smiling after the tattoo. "Wow, that is insane. It looks like it's breathing." Alistair, mockingly almost laughing. "Yeah, must have just hit the right spots of light." Riley leaves, still admiring the new ink, and Alistair cleans up the station. He glances at the serpent sketch one last time. It looks different though, like the coils have shifted position. He rubs his eyes, telling himself he's just exhausted. He locks up for the night. Then the whispering starts. Soft, indistinct murmurs that seem to bleed from the walls. He stops in his tracks, listening, but they fade as quickly as they arrived. He glances back at the counter where the ink bottle still sits, gleaming and untouched, but inviting. And as he leaves the shop for the night, he whispers to himself, "Tired. I'm just tired." The next morning, Alistair wakes up on the worn leather couch in his shop. His neck's sore and his head pounding. The previous night feels like a fever dream. But as he rubs his eyes, he notices the serpent sketch on the counter, still vivid, almost glossy with wetness. He swears it looks different from how it was left. His phone buzzes, joining him back into reality. It's a notification from social media, a picture of Riley's new tattoo, accompanied by comments raving about how incredible it looks. More notifications flood in, and Alistair realizes that Riley's post is blowing up. He scrolls through the comments, heart pounding, people calling it revolutionary, unrealistic, and like it's alive. Messages start pouring in, asking for appointments for the first time in months. His inbox is full. Alistair grinningly, "Guess I'm not closing up shop just yet." Over the next few days, clients poured in, each requesting intricate and vibrant designs. Alistair uses the mysterious ink on every piece, every tattoo, and it turns out more stunning than the last. Patterns ripple and flow, colours look impossibly deep, and even simple lines seem to pulsate with life. People keep coming, people keep commenting on how the tattoos look at when they move. Alistair dismisses it as just an eye trick, as a result of his improved technique and maybe just his clients' excitement. But people might be wrong. Alistair's confidence has now returned, and with it, almost manic drive to create. He works long into the night, his hands cramping from endless session after session. The shop becomes the hottest place in town, with customers lining up just to see his work. One evening, Alistair finishes an intricate sleeve on a biker named Greg, and he notices something slightly unsettling. The ink around the skull motif almost shifts, as if the skull grins wider when the skin moves. Alistair blinks, but it went back to normal. Greg, admiring his new tattoo, "Man, it's like it's breathing. Never seen anything like it." Alistair, now forcing his smile, "Just new techie I'm trying out. I'm glad you like it." Greg leaves, but the unease lingers. Alistair checks his arms, where small tattoos peek out from his shirt sleeves. For a moment, his old rose tattoo seems to twitch, petals subtly folding, his skin crawls with slight unease. A few days later, Riley barges back into the shop. Pale and shaking, she pulls up her sleeve to reveal the tattoo he had given her. The lines were darker, bolder, as if the ink had thickened. Worse, she swears it's been moving when she's alone, like the design is trying to twist and coil around her arm. "It hurts, Al, like it's digging into me." Alistair tries to calm her down, but deep down he knows something is wrong. He checks the ink bottle on the counter. It is still half full. Despite how many tattoos he's done, a chill now runs down his spine. He offers to touch up the tattoo, trying to cover up the strange lines with regular black ink. As he works, he feels resistance, like the new ink is being pushed out by the older, darker ink beneath. Riley winces as the needle digs deeper and deeper, and Alistair pulls back, sweat beading on his forehead. That night, Alistair can't sleep. He sits at his station, staring at that ink bottle, convinced it is glowing faintly, and the whispers that he heard that once now return, louder and more intense. They sound almost like voices, rasping, growling his name, and he hears, "Feed us, create us, become." Alistair jerks upright, knocking over his sketchbook. Pages spill out, each filled with frantic, chaotic designs he can't remember drawing. Spirals and faces contorting in agony, patterns weaving in unnatural shapes, his hands shaken as he flips through them. His own sketches feel foreign and grotesque. As if the whispers intensify, Alistair snatches the ink bottle and stuffs it back into the ornate box, shoving it into the deepest corner of the storage. But even as he locks the door, he knows it is not enough. The buzzing neon sign flickers out, and the shadows of the wall seem to warp into clawed shapes. He sits to the floor, clutching his head, his own tattoos now tingling, as if they're alive. A few days later, Alistair hasn't slept. He hasn't slept in days. Every sound feels magnified. Every whisper is like a scream. He avoids looking at his own tattoos, terrified of what he might see. His phone buzzes with notifications, but he ignores them until Riley's name appears on his screen. "Al, you've got to help me. It's spreading. I can feel it moving." Heart pounding, Alistair rushes to Riley's apartment. When she opens the door, she looks pale and exhausted, her arm bandaged and swollen. She peels back the fabric, revealing the serpent tattoo had expanded, the tendrils coiling up her shoulder, almost reaching her neck. The skin looks cracked and bruised, and she hisses in pain as it pulses. "We need to go to the hospital, now." Riley, shaking her head. "No, they just think I'm crazy. They already did when I tried to go before. They said it's just an infection, but it's not, it's alive." Alistair tries to think of something to say, but his mind is blank. He notices something moving beneath her skin, a subtle ripple like ink flowing through veins. Riley looks at him with pleading eyes. "Please, Al, you have to fix this. You made it. You can undo it." So they rush back to the shop. Back at the shop, Alistair tries to reverse the tattoo by inking over it with regular ink, but it just slides off Riley's skin. Unable to cover the unnatural lines, frustrated, he mixes more mysterious ink, desperate to see if it reacts differently. As he prepares the needle though, Riley groans and clutches her arm. The tattoo moved, the serpent's head twitching to face him. Alistair recoils, dropping the needle. Riley cries out, and Alistair watches in horror as the tattoo coils tighter, almost like it's trying to strangle her arm. In a panic, he grabs a scalpel and slices through the segment of the tattoo. Black tar-like ink seeps from the wound, but the design remains intact, almost healing itself over the cut. This is impossible. What the hell is this? After sending Riley home with some bandages and painkillers, Alistair locks himself in the shop. determined to figure out the ink's nature. He goes through every record and every receipt from the supply store, but nothing matches the ink's properties. Desperate, he clutches the bottle again, scraping off some residue and examining it under the microscope. To his shock, the ink under magnification appears to move on its own, like a colony of microscopic organisms writhing and twitching. He reels back, almost dropping the microscope. Thoughts now race through his mind. Parasitic? Sentient? Something unnatural? The whispers return clearer now. They speak his name. They beckon him to continue creating, to give it more food. The next morning, Alistair is woken by a frantic pounding on the door. It's Greg, the biker he tattooed. Looking dishevelled and pale, he's cradling his arm where the skull tattoo is now grotesquely distorted. Looks like it's biting into the flesh itself. The bone motif sinking into his muscle. Greg, at the door. It's eating me! It feels like it's gnawing through my goddamn bones! Before Alistair can respond, Greg collapses, convulsing on the floor. The tattoo seems to grow. The ink seems to spread through like veins in the skin. Alistair watches, paralysed with fear, as Greg's eyes ride back into his head and drips from his nose and mouth that look like ink. He dies in a matter of minutes. His skin shriveled and drained. The shop now feels suffocating, and Alistair can hear the whispers now louder than ever and clearer. They're chanting his name, and they're telling him to feed the art. Alistair now sinks to his knees, horrified. He checks his own arms and sees that his own tattoos have subtly changed. His flowers are now withering, skulls are now cracked, and serpents withering beneath his skin. He rushes to the bathroom to scrub his arms raw, but the ink remains dark and pulsing like living flesh. He realizes now that the ink is alive, a parasite that feeds on the host while using the tattoos as its anchor. It is not just art. It's a spreading infection, a living hunger that consumes flesh and the soul. The worst part is the more people that used it on, the stronger it becomes. And he already used it on 12 people. He checks his phone again, seeing messages from other clients, complaints of pain, strange dreams, tattoos moving on their own. Panic now surges through Alistair. Alistair says to himself in the mirror. Alistair hadn't left the shop since Greg's death. He kept the doors locked, ignoring the pounding from his customers demanding expectations. News of Greg's sudden death suddenly spread like wildfire, and social media was ablaze with theories. Drug overdose, an allergic reaction to ink, or even foul play. As the whispers now grew louder, Alistair's hands trembled while he scrolled through the messages from his clients reporting pain, nausea, and worst of all, tattoos that moved. Desperation gnaws at him. He opens his laptop and dives into forums and obscure tattoo blogs, searching for any mention of living ink or something familiar. One eye catches his attention. Ever heard of ink that becomes part of you? Literally? My uncle swore by this old recipe, said it made tattoos come alive, but those who used it didn't last that long. The post was from years ago, and the user is long gone. Frustrated, Alistair's eyes burn from the lack of sleep, but something about the post now sticks with him. The words, "becomes a part of you," echoes in his mind. Greg's body, the way the tattoo seemed to sink into his bones, comes to his attention. Alistair finally mustered the courage to call Riley. No place, so panic set in. As he leaves a voicemail, his voice cracking with guilt and fear. Moments later, his phone buzzes. It's Riley's roommate, Ellie. Ellie on the phone. She's not doing well. Al, you need to come here now. Alistair rushes as fast as he can to Riley's apartment. Ellie looks over on the verge of tears, pointing to Riley without saying a word. Alistair pushes the door open and freezes. Riley sits on the floor, back against the bed, shirtless to reveal the horrifying extent of the transformation. The tattoo has spread around her torso, the serpent's boil coiled around her ribs, tendrils stretching down her arms. Her skin looks cracked and darkened around the ink, as if it's feeding on her. It's eating me. I can feel it, like it's drinking my blood. Alistair kneels beside her, guilt flooding with him. He checks her pulse, weak and erratic. He tries to hide his horror as the serpent's eyes blink, the ink shimmering like wet oil. We'll fix this, I swear. I just need to figure out what is this stuff. Ellie pulls Alistair to her side, her voice fierce and terrified. What did you do to her? Why is it spreading? She's getting worse every single day. Alistair goes on the defensive. I don't know the ink. I didn't know it was alive. I just thought it was some special formula, but not this. Ellie responds. If you can't fix this, I'm calling the police. She trusted you, and look at her now. Ellie storms off, out the room, and Alistair is left alone with Riley, guilt suffocating him. The whispers are back though, almost triumphant. Masterpiece. Complete the art. Feed it. Alistair leaves and rushes back to his shop. Back at the shop, Alistair's hands ache from compulsive sketching now. He doesn't remember starting, but the pages are filled with grotesque design, serpents coiling through skulls, flowers blooming through cracked skin, and patterns that pulse with life, even on paper itself. He stares at the reflection in the mirror, and one of his tattoos, a rose on his neck, has started to bloom, petals shifting as if it's in a breeze. He pulls down his shirt, seeing more of the ink spreading like roots crawling over his shoulder. Chilling thought takes root. What if it's just not the ink, it's his intentions? Or what if a desire for recognition and success has fueled this ink's power? Alistair now clutches his head as the whispers rise in a chaotic chorus. Alistair finds himself drawn to his needle. And ink, despite his fear of it. He watches his hands as if they begin to move like they belong to someone else. Moving with unnatural precision, he traces over an old tattoo, a simple skull on his forearm, and the ink pulses, spreading like wildfire. Then, the skull's jaw moves as he's trying to scream. He snaps out of his trance when the shop phone rings. It's another client screaming in agony, begging for help. As the tattoo grows and wraps, Alistair smashes the phone against the wall, unbearably able to contain his guilt. In the eerie silence that follows, he knows one thing. If he doesn't destroy the ink, it will destroy him and everyone else he's marked. But how do you kill something that isn't truly dead or truly alive? Alistair paced the tattoo shop, mind racing. His hands wouldn't stop shaking, and his own tattoos are now starting to move under his skin, like something crawling just beneath the surface. He knew he had to find out where that ink came from, so he rummaged through his supply cabinets, pulls out a half-empty bottle and examines the label. There's no brand name, just an embossed skull and a serpent coiled around. He scours his receipts and order history, trying to remember where he got it. Nothing matches, but then it hit him. He didn't buy it online or for a supplier. It was part of a box of old supplies inherited by the previous shop owner, an eccentric artist named Hector Gray. Desperate for answer, Alistair digs through old paperwork until he finds contact for Hector, but his line is disconnected. He remembers Hector used to live in the old loft above the shop before he vanished without a trace. Grabbing a flashlight, Alistair pries open the loft's rusty door. Dust and cobwebs fill the air. All the room is cluttered with faded drawings and rotting tattoo equipment. One of the walls has dozens of sketches depicting the same serpent and skull symbol, intertwined with grotesque fingers and flesh merging with ink and bodies. Hector finds he has a journal. The brittle page is stained, and one entry catches Alice's eye. The ink speaks to me. It whispers promises of immortality, art that lives, that breathes, and consumes. But it's never satisfied. It craves more blood, more flesh, more of the soul. I thought I was the master, but it uses me. It needs an artist to give it life. Flicking through the diary, Alistair finds the final entry, scrawled in frantic handwriting. It's feeding on me now. My tattoos move on their own. I hear them whispering. I tried to stop, but the ink kept calling to me. I must burn it all, destroy the vessel, before it takes me completely. Alistair then realises Hector must have tried to destroy the ink, but failed. Panic now sets in as he notices the sketches on the loft are still shifting and still moving. In the dim light, the ink on that paper seemed alive. He swipes his hand over one and the ink smears, leaving a trail that pulses and seeps like flesh blood. The whispers get louder, demanding to be spread, to be shared. Alistair's mind races as if burning the ink doesn't even work. Then what? He knows he can't just destroy the bottle. He can't purge it from his skin, from Riley's skin. He grabs his tattoo needle and sterilizes it with his shaking hands. He heads to Riley's. Eddie's now blocking his path, refusing to let him in. Alistair pushes past, determined to save Riley before it was too late. Inside, he finds Riley, writhing on the floor in pain. Veins blackened and the serpent tattoo pulses and wriggles. Riley, now very weak. It's inside of me, eating me alive. Alistair stills himself, sets up his equipment, explaining to Riley and Ellie that he's going to extract the ink. Cut it out of her, even. Ellie watches in horror as Alistair carefully inks over the edges of the tattoo with a plain black ink, hoping to contain the living design. But as the needle pierces Riley's skin, the serpent reacts violently. Then coil tightens, biting into her flesh more, drawing blood. Riley screams and Alistair pulls back, horrified as the tattoo bites him too, inking a fresh, bleeding wound onto his hand. Realising the ink could not be overwritten or contained, Alistair's mind spirals into depression. Ellie accuses him of torturing Riley and trying to pull him away, but Alistair refuses to stop, desperate to save her. You're killing her! You're killing Riley! You're making it worse! Riley's breath becomes laboured and her eyes glaze over. In one last glitch effort attempt, Alistair grabs his scalpel, determined to cut out the serpent himself. He digs it into Riley's flesh, the serpent writhing and biting black. Black, oily blood oozes from the wound, and then whispers reach a fever pitch in his head. Before he can make any more progress, Riley convulses and goes still. Ellie shoves him away, cradling Riley's limp body, and the ink coils tighter, the serpent's head now resting over her heart. Alistair stumbles back, realising he made it worse. The ink had claimed her completely. The serpent eyes blink, and for a brief moment, he swore it smiled. Alistair now sat alone in his tattoo shop, staring at his ink-stained hands, the bite marks, still faint, still bleeding black. He can feel his own tattoo shifting under his skin, whispering his failures back to him. The shop feels suffocating, every piece of artwork on the walls seemingly mocking him. He tries to scrub the ink from his hands, but it won't come off. It just sweeps deeper, sinking into his veins. In desperation, he smashes his equipment, scattering needles and bottles across the floor. A sudden knock on the door makes him freeze. It's Ellie, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling. Riley's gone. Alistair's stomach now sinks, but Ellie's words hang heavy in the air. She doesn't mean dead. she means missing. Alistair and Ellie scour the city, checking places Riley used to hang out. The skate park, the cafe, even the abandoned lot where she used to paint murals. They find nothing, just the empty echoes of a life that felt more distant by the second. At the shop, Alistair dug through old client records, desperately trying to see if anyone else had been affected. He remembered a guy named Marcus, who came in for a large back piece using the same ink. He dials the number, and after a few tense rings, a stranger picks up. Marcus? He's not here. Cops came by last week, found his place covered in some black smudge. Haven't seen him since. The lines go dead. Alistair swears under his breath. He's now running out of leads. Back at the shop, Ellie stumbles across Hector's journal, flipping to the final pages. She reads aloud a passage about the final piece, a tattoo that merges with the artist, consuming them entirely. Alistair feels a chill run down his spine as he reads it. The ink completes itself through the creator. It thrives on creation, feeds on art and the artist. It is the ultimate canvas. The more art it claims, the more it becomes a masterpiece. The artist becomes the final piece, the heart of the collection. Alistair realizes that his body is becoming the final masterpiece. And with each new tattoo he's done, the ink had been feeding, growing, evolving. His own tattoos began to shift more violently, swirling in chaotic patterns that pulsed with a life of their own. Suddenly Eddie screams and points at Alistair's reflection in the mirror. His tattoos are now writhing, forming distorted, grotesque faces that laugh and sneer at him. His entire body pulses with a dark energy, and it feels like the ink sliding under his skin, crawling towards his chest. His vision blurs, and he collapses to the floor, gasping for air as his tattoos stretch and warp, forming new designs without his control. Riley's face, twisted in agony, etched into her shoulder. Ellie's terrified and helpless, tries to comfort him, but he pushes her away, fearing the ink will consume her too. The whispers intensify, demanding that he completes his masterpiece. Alistair's mind breaks as he sees a vision of Riley wandering the city, alive but transformed. Her tattoos move like snakes, coiling around her arms and neck, glowing with an unnatural light. She's spreading the ink, offering tattoos to strangers who are drawn to her like moths to a flame. He knew the ink had completely claimed her by now, and is using her as a vessel to continue its growth. Alistair making a decision, he has to find Riley and put it to an end, even if it means destroying himself. And that was Blood Ink, a story about obsession, creation, and the terrifying cost of chasing artistic perfection. When passion becomes a curse and art turns into something alive, it's a reminder that sometimes our greatest inspirations can consume us, literally. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you follow Glitch Reality on your favourite podcast forms so you never miss the next twisted tale. If you've got any thoughts or theories, or you want to be a part, please hit me up on my social medias or drop a review. Your feedback helps keep the nightmare alive. And just a reminder, we now post comics on Webtoons as well to keep it going. This comic should be up in the next couple of weeks, so keep an eye out. As always, thanks for tuning in to another dark dive into the uncanny and the unknown. Sleep tight and maybe think twice before getting that next tattoo. As always, keep an eye on the glitch, because sometimes the glitch is truth.